Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Amazon Prime Day webinar. We're very excited to have you. Thank you for joining us. Mackenzie Cahill, our Director of Industry, Retail, and CPG, will be hosting this webinar, and I'll be kicking it off to you. Mackenzie.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you guys all for being here. I hope you can hear me okay, and I hope everyone enjoyed a busy, I'm sure, but successful Friday. I'm really excited to unpack everything we've learned so far and found with you guys today. Before we do get into what that all means and how we saw things, I just wanted to introduce myself. So my name is Mackenzie Cahill. I'm the Director of Industry for Retail and CPG at Similarweb. I've been at Similarweb for about 3 years now, but my entire background has really been steeped in the market research space, specifically when it comes to digital behaviors. So my work today, I get to bring the capabilities and data sets of Similarweb and tailor them in ways that are specific to answering key business questions for our retail and CPG clients. Fun fact, we're always fans of fun facts here at Similarweb. So mine is that I bought 4 things on Prime Day. I'll talk more about them as we go, only 2 of which sadly were even on sale. Okay, so enough about me, more about what we do. At Similarweb, the way we approach retail and CPG comes really in these 2 ways. So we've got this 360-degree view of the entire digital landscape around the world that we look at first an D2C motion. So this really is about optimizing your space on the web, identifying white space where you can grow your brand or website presence, improving your ROI specifically around your marketing channels, understanding more about your audience's interests, be it overlap with other sites, and search behaviors. The second, and what we're really going to spend a lot of time on today, comes from what our brand new shopper intelligence tool. So this is all really focused on the marketplace ecosystem. So we really want to spend more time looking at the overall sales behaviors around Amazon, within Amazon, what that means at the very top, middle, and bottom of the funnel across all of the different categories. So in terms of what we'll actually be covering and answering, I'll go through. So first, just overall Prime Day performance, right? Was it a success? What drove that success? How was that success different than last year's? We'll talk about shopper behaviors. So what were they searching for? How efficiently did they convert? What times of day were people searching and making purchases? Net new customers. This is always a really big one that I'm excited to talk about because we uncovered a few things here, but really, was Amazon able to widen their already huge customer base, and which were the categories that benefited from that? We'll get into category performance. So overall, just how the different categories did, which drove more success than others. And then we'll look at a couple of groups of them and get into some examples. And then lastly will be halo effect. This will be really interspersed throughout, but how Prime Day impacted retailers outside of Amazon. And then the one other point I wanted to make, because this data set is so massive and Prime Day itself is so massive, as we all know, we won't be able to get into every single category and all the nuance, but I hope you guys will all take away some of the capabilities we have and questions we're able to answer. So if you see something and say, hey, I'd really love to see what that looks like in my category, for my brand, for my products, or for my competitors' products, please email at swteam@similarweb.com. I know they're going to put a link in the chat as well, but I just wanted to make that plug there. Okay, so overall performance, was it a success? In short, yes. So let's start on the left. Just performance on Prime Day year over year. When I talk about Prime Day throughout today, when I say year over year, I do mean last Prime Day. So in October, I know it wasn't a full year ago. So going from left to right? So product views from last Prime Day were up 30%, units sold were up 32%, and revenue was up 36%. So one of the first things I always like to do is look at these types of metrics in relation to one another, right? So if we've got product views up 30%, but units sold up even further at 32%, people don't really need to do as much consideration. They probably know what they want to move that needle higher. And then they're spending more money on those same units sold. So really effective at the bottom of the funnel, but all the way through. And then comparing Prime Day to the lead up. So June 1st to 20th daily average, product views were up 353%, units sold up 365%, and revenue up whopping 594%. So really across the board, huge growth. That 36% on revenue actually accounted to $2 billion revenue growth relative to last year's Prime Day. And you can see really those revenue numbers people came to spend. One question I get often is Prime Day just becoming a quote unquote Amazon garage sale? And I thought that was a pretty funny term, but I wanted to look at, among the top brands, how much of the air did Amazon really take out of the room? And they really spend a lot of time up front pushing their own products. What does that actually look like? Is there enough pie for everyone else to go around? And you can see that there really is. The main point I'll make that they did capture their highest share on the hottest day, so day one, but they really didn't dominate the room with their white label brands. And we'll get into some more specifics around that later. Despite that sort of fall off in units sold between day one and day two, the spend, I will highlight, was really still there. So the overall basket size on day two actually increased year over year by about 6%. So day one was about $170 per basket, and day two stayed about even with that. So that was up from about $159 last year. And the lead up stayed about pretty flat, so about $119 going in. Okay, this one I found really fascinating as well. It's pretty telling on a behavioral level when we look at this purchases by hour data, right? So starting on the left, you can see the same sort of arcs for day one and day two. But interestingly, really don't see any single hour dominate this huge rush of purchases in this system. It's just fascinating because there was a lot of urgency attempted to be created around Prime Day, right? You have the deal countdown clocks, but that didn't really come through in some sort of purchase spike. This really didn't fluctuate very much by category either, I'll call out. So let's unpack what's driving that. First, I think, we can attribute some to some Prime Day fatigue and general shopping fatigue. Let's remember that, it hasn't even been a full year since the last Prime Day. It's only been about 8 months with the entire holiday shopping season falling squarely in the middle. And then you're bombarded with all the sort of marketing, not just from Amazon itself, but you've got publishers and then the sort of add-on deals that the other retailers are moving with. And they try to come into the market even earlier, right? On the 20th for Walmart and Target. So it just creates a lot of noise that the time Prime Day actually arrives, you're probably not in that sort of same rushed headspace that you might have been in the past. And then the second that starts to trickle up a little bit is this somewhat notion of skepticism, right? So I had highlighted an article from CBS News that discounts might not be as prime as you think. And there's a lot of unpacking of how do they actually even measure discount, right? So there's a whole explanation page that I won't get into on strike-through pricing and savings. But before unpacking that, just once you're in someone's mind about something, it's not actually that great a deal. It creates just that enough hesitancy that, I'm going to wait till certain times of day that it's convenient for me to go into the market. So what were people actually searching for? Across the board, a couple of things we noticed, right? So top searches tend to be somewhat generic on either day. So on the left, you see January to May, top keywords by clicks. And then on the right, we have Prime Day, top keywords by clicks. So inevitably, when you see these types of top keywords by clicks, that for the most part, I know you can note some exceptions, you're going to see a lot of clicks per keyword. So if I'm just looking for a laptop, I don't even know what type of laptop I want. I'm probably going to click around and look for a good deal associated with that one search. Prime Day really starts to intensify the search for brands, right? You can see AirPods, Nintendo, Xbox, Kindle, also some electronics, and then some of those seasonal interests come up. So the water shoes and golf. So I thought it was really interesting. Some of the pieces here that stood out to me. One is Amazon has this sort of hallmark from the last year of being really the go-to retailer when COVID shut everything down, and they were the ones you had to go to for everything you need because you couldn't shop. So the question becomes, will they hang on to that reputation, or as we sort of exit COVID, will people start going back to old patterns in some way or another? So when you see things like golf, luggage, new clothing, so people are ready to get back out in the world, and they're still coming to Amazon for those items they want in order to do so. And then, you know, sort of carrying through the entire thing as well are these sort of home and home improvement interests. So getting into the category level performance. So this graph is showing, you can see on the bottom are overall Prime Day product views, and then on the y-axis is actual conversion rate. And then the bubble size relative to one another are their actual sales. So a couple of things, you know, we want to look at this way because we want to see, okay, maybe you've got some products that are getting a ton of views, but are they actually translating to the overall conversion, or is it just noise? And then you've got some that maybe don't get a ton of views, but they're really, really efficient. So we'll go through sort of these clusters that I named as investments, table stakes, and headliners. And that's how we'll go through each of them as groups and sort of what the similarities or differences are. But the one thing here is that no one category really dominated Prime Day. I think some of those headliners, they're called headliners because they get so much of that attention in terms of the lead up. And when you think of Prime Day, those are the types of discounts you probably think of. But at the bottom of the funnel, it's really a mixed bag. Okay, so what do these groups mean? So investments, grocery and gourmet and gift cards, these low product views, but really high ROI, so really high conversion. So if I'm gonna look at them, I'm more likely to actually go through and convert. They don't necessarily make a lot of money on a product by product basis for, you know, if I'm Amazon. However, it's really an investment in a longer term relationship. They're high, you know, something like grocery or gourmet is high frequency. I'm going to come back, and if I'm going to come back, I'm going to come back quickly and for my next grocery purchase. If I buy a gift card, by definition, that's going to bring another visit to the site just to actually use it. Table stakes. This is when you think about like widening the marketplace. So it's not just my grocery store, or it's not just my once in a while shop. So it's this sweet spot in the middle where there's this humongous range of items and brands and fairly frequent purchase, high loyalty within the categories. So really very, very valuable to have steeped and grow if you're a retailer. And then last would be the headliner. So really the heavier, highly publicized discounts, target areas of expansion for sure. We'll get into some of that, but very, very deal driven as well, and less frequent purchases. Okay, did Amazon widen its audience? I think this is probably my favorite part of this entire presentation that I'll keep coming back to because I think it's really important, right? So first, all the way on the left, net new customers. When I say net new throughout this entire presentation, it means that they didn't make a purchase within that space over the past 12 months. So 2% of Amazon purchasers to any category were net new. So compared to some of the other numbers you see here, yeah, that's not huge, but if it's overall Amazon and you think about it's over our existing customer base, 2% growth is not necessarily something to sneeze at. The second piece, and more interesting to me personally, is that these higher numbers kind of start to indicate customers, yeah, I'm already an Amazon customer, but I'm intrigued to actually take this opportunity to maybe shop a new category that I hadn't before, right? So again, going to that sort of expanding relationship when some people might have gone to Amazon for, you know, specific things, maybe they were forced to because their shopping habits had to change during COVID. But then really this is a reflection of the success of being able to expand those relationships. And the reason I highlighted some of these categories, or they're the clusters we'll be going through today. So even though you see things like health and household and grocery and gourmet on that sort of lower end of the spectrum, and pet supplies, we'll talk about how those are really this sort of high loyalty, high purchase frequency categories. So when you talk about something like 14 to 20%, that's actually quite significant. Okay, so let's get into the categories. So starting with those investment categories, again, establishing a long-term relationship, really investing for the future, want to have a really high value, average customer value over time. So it's not really that upfront benefit, but ongoing. So starting with grocery did $187 million of revenue on Prime Day, and 15% of purchasers had not purchased in grocery categories on Amazon within the last 12 months. Another note is that those purchasing in the grocery category on Prime Day did tend to spend more when compared to last year too. So on day 2, grocery baskets actually were about 6% higher overall, not just on groceries, but if I bought groceries, my entire Amazon basket was going to be 6% more expensive than it was last year. And then I wanted to double click into that purchase frequency I keep coming back to and talking about within the category. to highlight those recurring relationships. So it's especially big in grocery. So looking at the left, this is saying in May, 75% of grocery customers made an Amazon grocery purchase within the past 6 months. So before we were talking about 12, this I wanted to tighten it a little bit. And over half of that 75%, so zeroing into, okay, they've already made a prior purchase. When did that prior purchase happen? So over half of that 75%, or 42% of total, had made a purchase in grocery, not just on Amazon, but within grocery between the last 0 to 30 days. So that extremely valuable kind of relationship of bringing them back to your site, bringing them back to market to spend money on a recurring basis. And then shifting gears, moving over to gift cards. So obviously the gift card deals were pretty aggressive. About 2.4 million gift cards were sold on Prime Day this year. By nature, those gift cards are going to expand Amazon's footprint. Either it forces the person that purchased to come back and actually engage again and go shop through the platform for something new that they might want, or they gift it and create a whole new experience with Amazon for someone new. And then because there's this attention on grocery, I want to take a second to get into the some of the details in it. So because it is a heavy focus, not just for Amazon, but competing retailers. So I know Target gave out $10 gift cards to customers who were spending $50 on food and beverages and use same day services. That and the fact that grocery is just this high converting category on Amazon made it really intriguing from a cross shopping perspective. So high conversion rates are typically associated with less of a consideration window, right? So high conversion means I had more relative purchases to product views than some other categories I did. So if you, therefore, kind of widening the lens to the other retailers, it was interesting and really speaks to Amazon's success that they were able to pull such significant rates of visits from Walmart and Target. So on the left, you can see it says 27% of Target grocery category visitors. So on the bottom, it's the category that they were shopping on, the other retailer, not Amazon, also visited grocery and gourmet on Amazon. So those are huge numbers, especially when you look at Walmart going over to shop the Amazon grocery categories on Prime Day. Conversely, so what's not written on here is that what's Amazon sharing back with these retailers, and that consistently is only about 1 or 2%. So that's a really big deal, right? So if you're Amazon, you're doing a better job of bringing in these customers that are more likely to actually move through the funnel and make those purchases. And then I wanted to think about some of the beneficiaries of Amazon's success in this category. Who's going to continue to win going on? Because you think of the 365 brand and Whole Foods. So if we looked at overall brands, top brands playing within the grocery category, 6 of the 24 of the total brands were actually Amazon brands. So it's about 17.5%, with the rest actually going to others. Okay. So moving forward to what we call the table stakes category. So sort of that sweet spot in the middle where you've got high purchase frequency, not quite as high as, a grocery, but, quite high loyalty as well. Really broadening your sort of reach if you're Amazon overall. So they're highly shopped categories. There's a lot of brands playing in them. And then you can really kind of grow yourself as the go-to market. So these we looked at health and household, pet supplies, and beauty and personal care. So the overall efficiency in these categories ranges from about 14 to 19% on Prime Day, and that came to about a combined $788 million in revenue. And this combined with substantial increases in overlap visitation kind of really starts to continue to pose those retailer threats. So a couple of highlights. One is on the health and household side. You can see really the top cross-shopping areas tend to focus on the vitamin space and health. Vitamin is a big deal to Amazon. They have about 34% of their revenue in May was subscribe and save. So if you can get a customer in, you're more likely to keep them. And some of those top terms, so within the vitamin category or interests on specific to Prime Day, included creatine, pre-workout, protein powder. So people turning to Amazon, for that sort of fitness and health improvements as, it becomes more of a focus as people come out of their COVID hiding. And then beauty and personal care shoppers, definitely research and deal driven in general, but especially on Prime Day. So combined, those cross shopping rates grew from an average about 41% during lead up to about 52% on Prime Day. So I wanted to double click into health and household because it is a particularly big category. And like I mentioned, I know vitamins were significant, but I wanted to know if there were any specific subcategories that were driving the success, or was it really shared across the board? And you can see that really growth was pretty well spread across the board. Sports and nutrition and vitamins and supplements definitely saw the greatest increases in revenue and units sold, really continuing that emphasis on health post-COVID. Vitamins actually now lead in share of overall revenues. They account for 24% of revenue within the health and household category. So really, again, Amazon helped us when we were getting into the pandemic. Now they're helping us get out. And then wellness and relaxation growth stood out to me a little bit too. So massage gun and Theragun were pretty popular search terms during the Prime days. So Ledgerall was the one that captured the most for massage gun, most clicks on both days. 28% of the 29,000 Theragun searches on day one went to actually the Theragun competitor, Ledgerall, before Theragun kind of came back and captured 39% of that 26K on day two. So Prime Day does sort of give this opportunity to the smaller players, not necessarily the name brands out of the gate, to increase their footprint when maybe some of the established or well-known or more aspirational brands kind of sit back. And then getting into the figures, when I talk about sort of long-term value of establishing customer bases in these categories, right? So loyalty is definitely increasing. So they're already pretty loyal categories, and then if you can keep them, you're going to continue to benefit from it. So across the board, so for beauty and health and household, they were able to increase their fanatics. So that's defined to us as 5+ purchases within the category within 12 months. So that moved from 13 to 18% in beauty and 21 to 26% in health and household. And then the subscribe and save number, so about 15% of beauty revenue in May was subscribe and save, and 27% for health and household was subscribe and save. And then last, pet products, 3% of fanatic growth over time, so over the last year. So that's saying, again, 5+ purchases in the category within 12 months, and then 28% of that category's revenue is subscribe and save. Double clicking into pets, again, this is one kind of coming back to Amazon's footprint in the categories they play in, right? So I wanted to take a look at WAG, their white label pet brand. So starting about 80 of the top 40 top pet supplies products on Prime Day were WAG products. So on average, they had about 24% discount versus the lead up, while sort of the rest of those brands kind of netted out relatively flat. So definitely more aggressive within the space. And it certainly translated at the bottom of the funnel, right? So increasing their overall footprint, now they're about 4% of units sold. That was versus 1% at last Prime Day, and 2% of all category revenue versus 1% on last Prime Day. And then you can see on the right too, just outpacing on every step of the funnel. So 160% growth in product views, 376% growth in units sold, and 260% growth in overall revenue. While the rest of the category certainly did very well, but WAG definitely outpaced everyone. Okay. Headliners. So these tend to be the higher revenue product, not necessarily very high purchase frequency, target areas of expansion in a lot of cases, and then just heavily deal driven too. So really brings out the attention on Prime Day. So how did they perform? So people are definitely more willing to spend with less overall consideration on Prime Day. So that's what we're talking about when we see the revenue growth outpacing the product views growth, and units sold outpacing product views as well. So this is versus the lead up. These are really important categories just when you think about their overall size, right? So electronics and home and kitchen are first and second revenue drivers for Amazon. So electronics did about $5 billion in May of 2021 versus about 4.9 in May of 2020. Home and kitchen did about $4 billion up May 21 versus 3.7 last year. And then clothing, shoes, and jewelry falls fifth overall. So this isn't just specific to Prime Day, but just trying to highlight the importance of these categories. So the success really is quite notable. when you think about it versus just the, everyday, how they really come in with a smash after the lead up as already important categories. So year over year metrics also followed sort of the similar growth pattern to what we've seen. So electronics revenue grew 37% up from last Prime Day, units sold up 27%, and product views up 17%. So again, really the emphasis on growth falls at the revenue and units sold level, but growth across the board. So I wanted to get into one example for home and kitchen before we get into a little bit more on revenues. Overall, the #1 Prime Day search, regardless of category, regardless of where it went, was air fryer. So I wanted to understand better, what that meant, who benefited from that versus not. So on the left, we can see the searches. I had pulled all air fryer typos and all for the category for the site. So air fryers generated on day 1, 667,000 clicks. On day 2, 448,000 clicks. You can see the shift too. So it's highly competitive, right? So Kasori captured 24% of those 667,000 on day 1. Whereas about Instant Pot got about 21% of that 448,000 on day 2. So no one's ever capturing more than a quarter of the clicks to any sort of air fryer search. There's really sort of this searching around. You don't go there. There weren't air fryer with a brand attached to it. It's really just this sort of general searching and shopping, an interest that pops up on Prime Day. So I wanted to look into conversion rates too. So for Kasori air fryers, we saw about 6%, Ninja about 12%. So notable because they didn't actually lead at any of the top brand share of these clicks. So they got clicks, they just weren't the highest clicked, but obviously once they gained those clicks or those views to their air fryer products, they did the best job of converting them twice as much as the next best. And then you can see Dash Instant Pot, and actually Toshiba had one as well that converted quite well. So, what does this mean to the other sites? Was it just the air fryer game on Amazon, or did people actually search other places as well? Because on Amazon, what we're seeing is definitely heavy competition, a lot to see and a lot to research. So people did actually go look at Walmart, Target, and Best Buy as well. And they did a really good job in addition to actually moving those searches through the funnel. So Walmart converted about 8% of air fryer searches, Target 14%, and Best Buy about 10%. Okay, so shifting gears back to some electronics. I was really curious about shopper overlap. So we'll keep talking about this in different cuts, but just looking at the electronics Amazon shoppers, how likely were they to actually shop other electronics retailers? And you can see this fall off between last year Prime Day and this year Prime Day. So definitely becoming more exclusive on Amazon. There's also sort of outside market forces that come into this. When you think about Prime Day in October, it fell very close to the iPhone 12 release. So when there's more noise in the market, when there's more news around, people are obviously more interested in shopping around and better understanding and doing their actual homework. This year, Amazon kind of benefited from avoiding that cross-shopping, that sort of head-to-head cross-shopping at the same rates, but still had that bottom line of 37% revenue growth and 27% for overall units sold. So I apologize for this, these charts. I always want to share all the information I have, and it can get a little messy. But let's go through the top keywords by user on within the electronics category. Because it's quite big, I was curious to, were there any sort of standouts that people were searching for? So higher user, we're looking at this from a user basis, not a click basis this time. So that's saying the reason you can see things like on day 2, monitor had 290,000 clicks, but laptop came in second with 400,000 clicks. That's saying more users, you've got a higher customer base of individuals looking for monitors. They're just not clicking as much. They're not searching around the same way you would if you're looking for a laptop and maybe associating more than one click with a given search. So really, we didn't see a ton of change between days 1 and 2 in the overall terms, right? So gaming laptop, Roku kind of popped up on one and the other. And then the other takeaway here is that sort of mostly generic aspect. So if I'm going to go to Amazon and do a search on Prime Day, I'm probably not one of those people that's done my homework ahead of time and read a lot of the news, that sort of best deals to capture list. You're going to Amazon to say, I bet there's a laptop on sale. I bet there's a TV on sale. I bet there's a monitor on sale, and doing all your homework right there. The other call out that stood out to me here was some of Apple's share. So typically when we think about branded share of keywords, right? So if I'm a brand and I'm Apple and somebody searches iPad or iPod or even Apple laptop, typically you'll see, pretty comfortably over 90% capture for branded searches, not just for Apple, but in general, that's a rule of thumb, right? So on Prime Day, you can see for AirPods on day one, they had about 78%. On iPad, only about 68%. So you're seeing a lot more competition and actually successful competition pulling clicks away from Apple, just Apple products. One last piece I'll make, on Apple. For the AirPod searches, they tend to lose to Tozo. So you can see just the generic earbuds on day two. Tozo got about 23% on day one, 22%. So if I'm going to search AirPods and not click Apple, typically not just during Prime Day, that's to the benefit of Tozo or Amazon Renewed products. Okay. In terms of brand winners, I picked out a few that I wanted to go through. So these are the units sold Prime Day performance. So Apple and Logitech really leading the pack. The interesting thing is, yeah, their lift is still huge, right? So relative to the others, it does not look that big, but still, their lift is in the hundreds of when we think about percent. So they definitely, earned their Prime Day attention. But then you see these sort of smaller brands. So Insignia really running with their TV specials, over 3,000% lift and spike from lead up. So not typically surprising. TV is pretty hallmark of a Prime Day deal, so they certainly benefited from that. Acer monitors and computers tend to see those types of spikes, where the others you get a bit of a mix in overall brand assortment. Okay, let's get into some of the halo effect, because you typically see as much news and attention on Prime Day, not just for Amazon, but some of the other retailers as well. So, one theme I'm sure you've all caught as we go through, Amazon's these sort of attempts to undercut Prime Day didn't exactly work. There are definitely some benefits we saw, and let's get into them. So first, just on domain visits lead up versus Prime Day, everyone did see a lift, right? So the efforts that were put into capturing on those days paid off. So, if we think about specifically, we spent some time talking about Best Buy, Target, and Walmart's efforts to really put their deals out there and undercut anything they could from Amazon. That translated. They increased their share, Best Buy 42%, Target 38%, and Walmart 41%. And just for reference, Amazon increase in this time frame with these same metrics was 50%. So obviously, you're always going to trail Amazon, but that lift is comparable and really specific. But the interesting piece is that the actual cross shopping, like we keep talking about, was not that hadn't changed that much, right? So we already went through some of the electronics, why they would be down. You can see across the board, the rest were quite flat actually, with Walmart being the only player that actually increased their pull of Amazon shoppers that actually went to Walmart on Prime Day at the same time. So we're seeing these other sites do a really good job of increasing their traffic, getting people to the site. They're just not getting those cross shoppers from Amazon. Amazon's doing an okay job pulling their cross shoppers, but going the other way, if I'm gonna go to Walmart, I probably already heard about the Walmart sales. You don't need to get me, I'm not interested in Prime and going to cross shop. You already hooked me on your marketing. I'm gonna go and purchase and move through that way without doing too much research. Okay. Marketing channels. So switching gears a little bit, we didn't really talk about marketing channels. We talked about on-site search and some of the other movement within the marketplace ecosystems. But I wanted to look at this because we broaden out the lens just to wrap things up to better understand, are there channels of intercept on Prime Day? So instead of just going, I'm going to go to Amazon and I'm going to go to Walmart at this rate, did somebody search and Walmart got something that Amazon would have otherwise gotten? So in short, when we look at this, it's really difficult to pull traffic from Amazon on a market, when we look at marketing channels, right? So they have 61% of their traffic comes direct. So just typing in Amazon.com, that increased about 2 percentage points on Prime Day. So that's traffic, if you're a competitor, it's really, you can't really intercept that in a search basis or on a referral or on social, on any ad platforms. I'm going to just type it in and go. Then when you look at search, so one note for Amazon search, 69% of Amazon search comes up as branded. So that's, yes, you can conquest on that, but the other thing to think about is that that's just a higher intentioned shopper, right? If I'm typing in Amazon, it's probably because I have Amazon in mind. So it's just gonna be that much harder to pull them in your spending to get that person away. The other note is that you can see this sort of increase in referral traffic share to all the sites. So that's not particularly surprising. We know affiliates play a big part on these days, even if, that goes through the lead up as well. So we talked about people doing their homework ahead. So just because, 7% of clicks to Amazon came directly from referral traffic, it doesn't really fully give the impact if you think about the people who might have read something ahead and then directly gone on Amazon on that day. So just something to keep in mind. But the other note I'll make for Prime Day is that no single referral site contribute over 1.5% of traffic to any player outside of Amazon when we looked at incoming traffic. So it's a really broad world out there. So there's a lot of different ways you can click through and get to the different sites. There's no sort of single heavyweight winner. So on that note, I will wrap it up, but I wanted to thank you guys and then make one final plug that if there's anything you saw today that you want to learn more about, or maybe it was a data point you found interesting that you'd like to see for your category or brand or competitor, please email us at swteam@similarweb.com. And we really look forward to continue to work with you.